The first thing that I usually do when recoloring my artwork is a level adjustment, and this does have to do with removing the background, but also it does enhance the quality of the art itself, so it does change the color. So you just want to go to your image, adjustments, levels, and you want to play with the sliders there. I usually bring the white in to the left, the black out to the right, and then just kind of wiggle the middle part around a little and see what helps my art look the way that it did when I painted it, like most accurately. Sometimes I have to increase the saturation quite a bit because my work gets washed out, but the level adjustment is the first coloring thing that I do. Then I usually work on removing the background, and there's a lot of ways to do that. We're not going to talk about that in this video. Once you get the background taken out, I like to put in a darker color to kind of make sure I've gotten all the pixels out of there. But most of the time I select the object and kind of cut and paste and put them on different layers. That way you can kind of delete any stray pixels that may have gotten picked up as well. Once you kind of get your art situated, then you can start working on some adjustments. So basically what I've done so far is adjust the levels and taken out the background, gotten rid of any stray pixels, and I'm just kind of cleaning up the edges. I like to do all of this detail work first before I get into the color adjustments. Yes, you can change things later on if you need to, but for me, this is just kind of the workflow that I've fallen into in my long span of 5 months, of 4 months, I think. I started in August playing with Photoshop. It's now November, the end of November. So not a long history with Photoshop. I'm just going to make a copy of this. Okay, the next part that we're going to talk about is probably the way that I recolor things the most, which is clipping masks. I like to put a background color just to kind of get me started. And the way that I work mostly now is by filling a color and doing a clipping mask, which is just you hover between the two layers and click option and a little arrow pops up and you can make a clipping mask and it clips that color to your object that's painted. Now, this is perfect for getting a flat base shape. And so I do work off of the base shape quite a bit because I wasn't really in love with the way that I did the ornaments and the garland on the original painting. It wasn't horrible, but Photoshop is full of variety. And so it's kind of nice to see what you can come up with just messing around. We are going to go over blending modes a little bit more. But that is something that I play around with quite a bit, is seeing what the blending modes do and the opacity. That's another way to recolor things. So that's what I'm doing right now. I've clipped a solid color to my artwork, and I'm just playing with blending modes. But once I have like my base shape down, usually what I do from there is layer that up with textures, and I'll just draw straight into Photoshop. I don't have a Wacom tablet yet. I'm still using my trackpad and my mouse, so I don't really love drawing in Photoshop yet. I do want to invest in a Wacom, but I want to make sure that I'm not going to go back to Adobe Illustrator. I don't know, I guess you could probably use a Wacom with Adobe Illustrator. I really don't know. I basically just picked a brush and I'm just like drawing straight into Photoshop and creating layers using my color palette and different brushes. So this clipping masks and painting directly into your art, I think, is the most straightforward way to like change the color. And you can do anything, like it really is limitless. So I'm just playing with some opacity, blending modes, really just kind of exploring. So I basically just clipped that brush layer on top of the color fill layer. So they're both clipped to the tree, so they're not outside of the tree. That's basically it as far as coloring goes. for clipping masks, I just experiment with different brushes, different color palettes, and I make the base shape and then add different colors on top of that to get the different effects that I like. And I kind of just see what I like and see what I don't like, and things sometimes work out and sometimes they don't. But I feel like this would be a good video to make in like a year or two from now when I have a lot more experience with Photoshop, because I'm sure there's probably 100 ways, easier ways to do the things that I do. Like, it does take me a long time to figure things out still, but I guess that's part of the journey. I do keep everything as separate as I can, just because I'm still not really great at selections, which is really, I think, more important than recoloring. Now that I've had a moment to sit and think about this, I wasn't really loving this piece, so I just kind of wanted to find something simple and move on to the next one. Now it's time for the magic wand tool. This is a wonderful tool, and I still really don't know how to use it well, but I've been experimenting with it. Changing color in my artwork in Photoshop is not as easy as changing color in Adobe Illustrator, and it has been a very hard challenge to try to figure this out. So I'm using the magic wand tool, and I'm just selecting the color that I want to replace in my image. And it wasn't like working right away, so I was looking at the top of the taskbar. First, I was making sure I was on the right layer. Then I was looking at the top option bar and noticed that contiguous was checked. So I unchecked that because I wanted to get all the red color that was in the image. So uncheck your contiguous if you want to get everything. Leave it checked if you only want to select things that are touching side by side. Then I realized that the tolerance level was very, very low. So it was only selecting the exact color. And because this is a mixed media piece, there's so many colors in this piece. I kept increasing the tolerance to try to capture more and more of the red. And so basically what I'm doing is making a selection with the magic wand. I'm trying to select all of the red and trying to replace that. Once I've got most of it selected, I make a new layer, go to Edit and Fill. And I have it selected to fill with the foreground color, but I noticed that it didn't capture everything. So I just basically kept redoing that over and over again. I probably, now looking back, should have just turned up the tolerance a lot higher, but I was kind of just doing this same thing over and over again, selecting a different part of the red, going back to the layer that I created to put my edit and then fill. And I just did that a few times until I got the majority of the red that I wanted replaced. And I just put this fun pink color in there. So I just keep looking for different things that I want to change. So the tree color was one that I wanted to change out. And so I just selected the tree and did the same thing, added a new layer, go to Edit and Fill. And it didn't select everything. Again, I think the tolerance was too low. So I just did it a few times and eventually was able to get the majority of the color out. But it was leaving this really interesting texture with the old layer underneath it. And I really liked the way that that was looking. So I think Photoshop, sometimes I find these like interesting little things that happen. And sometimes it's a happy accident. Sometimes it turns to a mess. But I guess that's the exploratory part of things and learning how to use the software. So I just kept doing the same thing, just kept selecting any colors that I wanted to replace, but it started to give me this really cool texture. And so I ended up just leaving a lot of that. I kept filling it in with the red edit, fill, but make sure you're doing it on a new layer, so that way if I ever wanted to change the color of this fill, I would just do a clipping mask on top of this and have the option to change it. So that was looking pretty good. I liked the pink ornaments that we changed out. I liked the red and the gold, and I think that combination is very cute. So without having to like draw anything, all I've done is replace the color, and I'm really liking the way that that's looking. So I want to mess around with the background and see what we can come up with. Find something cute. I think I wanted to add a little bit of texture to the tree so it wasn't so flat looking. There was some texture there, but I wanted to add a little bit more, like a little bit of snowflake or something. And so I don't have any brushes that I really love yet. In Photoshop, I'm still experimenting with brushes. But again, I did some speckles, then I did a blending mode, and it's a combination of things really. And you've seen this already, blending modes, but we're gonna make a Christmas tree now using a lot of blending modes. I still had to go through and make selections. I'm using the magnetic lasso tool this time to try and change the colors a little bit. You have to select what you want to change when your image is flat like that, scanned in, because this is traditional art. Now, if you already have a layered file, then that's different. But if you're coming and you're bringing flat work in, then anything that you want to change, you have to make a selection for it. So I basically made a selection, made a new layer, filled it with a color, and now I'm doing a clipping mask on top of that filled layer for some texture, just like we did in the first part of the video. Okay, I'm back on my main layer, and I'm going to fill it with a color. And then we're going to experiment with more blending modes. And I like this washed out, natural yellow looking version of this. So I wanted to build from there. I did mess with the opacity a little bit, but ended up changing the background and really just seeing what I could come up with. How far can I push this? What do I like about this? And I found this blending mode that was interesting. So I changed the background and started trying to just continue building on what we've made. This is again a little bit more exploratory. We're gonna do another selection and select all of the darker ornaments and recolor those. Same thing, I'm grabbing a color that I want, I'm going to edit, and I'm filling those, and so you're basically filling the selection when you do it that way. I'm just experimenting with different blending modes, and I really like this natural looking tree. It's a little bit dark, but I think it's interesting looking. And we'll move on to the last way that I color things, which is the hue and saturation slider. Now, if you go to Image, Adjustments, Hue and Saturation, and you start making your edits in here, that's considered destructive because it's affecting that specific layer. But if you go to the bottom of the layers panel and click the little cookie and click the hue and saturation level, the hue and saturation slider, then it becomes a new layer and you can do a clipping mask to the layer underneath it. So that's what I like to do first, is just see if there's any interesting color palettes that are happening with like a general slide. Like if I don't really know what I'm looking for, but I'm just experimenting, then that's what I like to play around with to see. You can change the saturation, the lightness, and the hue. And I found this like purpley teal color, and I thought that was really interesting. So I decided to leave that there. But you can also do this, you can use the hue and saturation slider with a selection. So I'm going to get the lasso tool out because I didn't really like the way the tree trunk was looking once I changed the tree color. So I just went in and selected my tree trunk, made a new layer, and I'm just going to color the tree trunk to match the tree. So use your eyedropper, just get a nice little brush and color it in. And since it's clipped down, it's not going to paint everywhere. It's going to paint only to the clipped part, which is great. But that was a little bit flat looking, that brush that I selected. So I'm just knocking back the opacity a little bit to let some of that texture shine through. And it still had kind of a harsh line there. So I grabbed the clone stamp and kind of buffed that out a little bit. It's not perfect, but it definitely feels a little bit more cohesive now. So that's another way you can manipulate your colors. So this is our first one, our second one, our third one, and our fourth one. So hue and saturation sliders, blend modes, magic wands, and clipping masks. My favorite one that we made was the pink one, pink and red one. I think that one was really fun. So I went ahead and pulled that over into a new document and decided to make a little Christmas card. How fun! Lettering is a whole other thing that I still need to learn on. Yeah, I basically just made a textured background, put some fonts on there, grabbed our artwork, played with blending modes and opacity, and was able to recolor that sad little tree and make this beautiful little Christmas card. That's all for me in this video. There are 2 other ways that I can think of to recolor artwork using mask modes and then indexing color. Those are a little bit more intermediate and advanced, and I'm still kind of learning those. But if that's something you're interested in seeing, just leave me a message below and I will try to get to that in the new year. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in another video. Take care. Bye-bye now.